Hello and welcome to today's franchise interview. My name is Nick Strong and I will be your host for this time. I'm delighted to say that my guest today is my colleague Clive Smith, who specializes in helping business owners grow and scale their businesses through business format franchising. So thank you for joining us, watching. Thank you for watching us on YouTube. And we hope that you enjoy this session. We've put this together to help you consider how to move your business forward through business format franchising. So Clive, just to get us started, can you give us a bit of introduction about yourself, your background in franchising, and how best to make contact with you for those people watching?
Yeah, hello Nick. Delighted to be here. So my name's Clive Smith. I've worked in franchising for a good number of years now. Most of my career working with businesses that are large and small, or in all cases franchised, mainly in the service sector, but with in some other sectors as well. You and I have been working, really developing the franchise intelligence consultancy service for the last 3 or 4 years, working with a variety of different businesses in a number of quite variable different market sectors, and doing what you just said. We are helping those businesses to understand how they could scale their business by franchising, and then working with them to actually put a robust and an effective franchise system in place to allow them to achieve their ambition, which is to scale their business.
Okay, and what would be the best way to make contact with you for anyone that's interested in finding out more about how to go about franchising their business?
Yeah, sure. So my email address is clive@franchiseintelligence.co.uk. That really is the best way to get in contact. And also you can visit our website, which is www.franchiseintelligence.co.uk.
Fantastic. All right, thanks for that. So let's just start with getting the basics pinned down. People that own a business may have heard about franchising. That we all know the main high street quick service restaurant brands that are franchisers. But does franchising apply to every brand? Can anything be franchised? So really, what exactly is a franchise?
Okay, well, fundamentally, a franchise is all about replicating a proven business and scaling that business by inviting other people in to basically run replica operations of that already successful business. It's a very well-established, mature part of the UK economy, in fact, of the global economy. And in this country, there are something like 900 different franchise systems that operate through franchising. Some very, very big brands, as you mentioned, some of the big high street names, but there's a whole myriad of businesses in the service and retail, catering sectors that are very successfully franchising and have built their business because they are franchised, or have re-energized their business because they've converted to a franchise model.
Okay, great. So someone that has started their business, they've developed it to a reasonable size, and they're now thinking, okay, I want to take it to the next level. So at what point is a business ready to be franchised?
Well, at Franchise Intelligence, we tend to we talk to a lot of companies, a lot of business owners who identify franchising as perhaps a way forward, but they don't necessarily always understand the intricacies. They don't understand the process, and so. But what they do want to do is expand. Now, quite often, the first part of any discussion I have with a client will be to really understand the background, the origins of that business, and to really, I need to understand exactly where it is in terms of its growth. Really, a business that's going to franchise needs to be, I mean, I used the word proven before when I was trying to describe what franchising was. Certainly it has to be proven, and usually it has to be quite a mature business. Now, what that maturity means in terms of number of years it's been trading, that can vary. I've seen businesses, achieve a very, very good market position and have built a very successful model within, a matter of months, 1 or 2 years. Typically though, you're going to see businesses that probably have been around, at least 4 or 5 years before they're in a position where franchising might be the right route to take.
Okay, great. So it really must be proven to have some maturity and be in a position so those systems can be replicated successfully by someone else. So there are probably pros and cons to franchising your business. So what are they? What are the pros and cons of growing your business through franchising?
Okay, well, if we go back to what we were talking about at the beginning there, what is franchising? Again, proven businesses it is a way forward for them. Now, for a business owner thinking about expansion, the conventional route would be to add on more assets, more resource. So if you, for example, you operated a plumbing service, you might say, well, in order to break out of the current market that I'm in, I need to go and set a branch office up in another part of the country, and I need to employ some plumbers, and I need to get some vans, and I need all the infrastructure that goes with that. That all involves cost, inevitably, and a fair degree of risk. With a franchise, one of the great benefits is that if you've got something that's very successful, and it's got some provenance, it's got history behind it, and if you can train somebody to do what you've been doing in a reasonable timescale, so you can, as that person or or persons can replicate what you've been doing, then you can command a franchise fee for that. You can monetize all of that experience and knowledge you've built up to allow another person to operate the business you've been running. So one of the benefits of franchising, one of the pros, is that you can expand very cost effectively. You don't buy the assets, you don't buy the vans, you don't own the premises or rent the premises, you don't buy the equipment, you don't employ the staff. You basically say to somebody, look, here's my brand, here's all my intellectual property. Now, I'm going to give you access to that in order that you can do what I've been doing for the last umpty-tump years in this town or this part of the country. And I'm going to retain an interest in what you do, though, because you're going to use my intellectual property. I'm going to train you how to do it. I'm going to tell you everything that I've learned. I'm going to tell you all the things, how to do it. I'm going to tell you how not to do it. I'm going to fast track you. You're going to learn from all of the mistakes I've made. But if I train you properly, then you, all things being equal, should have the same level of success that I've achieved in the area that I'm in. But you're going to use my brand, and you're going to use all of my systems and processes, because you're going to be effectively an extension of me. And which comes to the second real benefit, is that you are going to have people who are empowered, more empowered than they might be if you just had employed a branch manager for that plumbing operation that you set up in wherever. Because that person is going to invest. They've got, it is their business. They have a vested interest in making the business work. So third benefit is, if you're a service business in particular, that really values the delivery of great service or great product to customer, then it has always been my experience, 99 times out of 100, that a franchise business, a service or product delivered by a franchisee, will be delivered with more panache, more vibrancy, and therefore the customer experience that will be that much better than you could achieve through another model. You also benefit in a franchise in that you create a network of individuals who all are continually thinking about how you could improve your business. They become the eyes and ears, and they help. And if you harness all of that correctly, and that takes a little bit of work, I have to tell you. And I've seen franchisors fail to recognise the value of all of that knowledge that sits in the network out there. But if you harness it, then that can be a real force for good. It can really, really help you maintain a very strong competitive edge in the marketplace. So and I guess the other point I would make, actually, just thinking about it, is that in most franchise businesses, once they've started a franchise, because they have delegated authority down to this network of other business owners, their own operation, their own head office operation, if you want to call it that, is much more manageable. You don't end up building a huge empire with layers of management. It becomes a far more simpler, far more fleet of foot business to operate.
Okay, it was a great list of benefits there for franchising your business. A good explanation there as to how it can work in practice. Often there's a flip side. There are cons as well. What are the negatives that you need to be aware of, and how can you mitigate the risk against those as a business owner that's going to franchise your business?
Okay. Well, yes, as you know, there are always two sides to a story, and there are some implications to franchising a business that we franchise intelligence will always explain very carefully to any client who's looking to franchise. Perhaps the first one is that in a franchise, I used the phrase just a moment ago that you delegate the responsibility down to your franchisees to run the business at local level. By doing that, you also give up, in theory, an element of control. If you by nature are a control freak, you want to be, have your hands on every lever in the business, and you don't like the idea of people bringing their own views and doing things slightly their own way. Then you might find franchising a little bit difficult. Having said that, franchising has to be prescriptive. The whole essence of this is that you set very, very clear boundaries within which the franchisees are going to operate. You want them to operate the business exactly as you have been doing in what you've done to press. So having very carefully defined processes, a very well constructed operations manual, having a good audit and review function so that you keep close watch on what the franchisees are doing is absolutely essential, and is part of what we do in helping to equip a franchise, our business to franchise. The other slight issue with franchising sometimes is that bringing about change can be a little bit more, can be slower sometimes, or it can be a little bit more complicated. And the reason for that is that because you've got this network of business owners, they look at everything from a commercial perspective. And so if you want to change the color of the vans or the signage on the shop, but you've got to convince the franchisees that it's worth them doing it. So you've got to put a business case. Now, it's not that you can insist on it, and in fact, the franchise agreement will have clauses within it which make clear that the franchisees have to go along with any reasonable change you want to make. But you just have to be a little bit more involved and a little bit more thorough in the way in which you execute change in the business. There are some other little issues. In a franchise, you can't dictate price. You have to allow franchisees to consider what prices they think are appropriate within the local marketplace. There are, again, some ways of putting some structure around that. You can set out the framework for your pricing, but you can't be specific necessarily about price. Quite often owners will say to me when I'm talking to them about how franchising works, and in practice, they will start to think, well, what happens if a franchisee leaves? Am I going to actually leave the network? Am I actually going to be training my competition? And the answer to that is you might, if you don't make the right provision within the franchise agreement. The franchise agreement is designed to protect the franchisor, you as the business that is franchising, protect your interests to the hilt. It is wholly written in your favor. And it is to protect all of your intellectual property and all of that experience and knowledge you give. So there are ways and means in the agreement to ensure that you don't create competitors out of those franchisees that exit the system, which will happen. It may happen because of their choice. It may happen through your choice. Every franchisor in the country has got some history of, we'll have ex-franchisees. It's inevitable, particularly because, just to make a point, the franchise arrangement, the franchise agreement rather, usually has a fixed term. Commonly 5 years, sometimes 10 years, could be up to 20 years. So when you go into business with any franchisee, you are partnering with them for that period of time. Which comes to the other, I suppose, potential con or implication is that if you don't get the selection bit right of those of the people you appoint as franchisees, you could have, it could be a little bit of a miserable existence. And I guess the only other point I would make is that in franchising is that sometimes it can be some emotional strains that you need to be equipped for, and that is because not every franchisee, if you had a network, or again, if I think about all the established franchisors that are out there, they will look at their networks just as you will look at any group of people, a sales team or any group of people. There will be those that are really good, the top 20%. There'll be a bunch that are sitting in the middle, which are okay, and there will be some that are going to be at the bottom of the list who are just not quite making it. They're just, and so it doesn't matter how much training and how much time you spend with some franchisees, some just don't get it, or they don't apply themselves in the right way. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them, and they fail, or they don't achieve what it is that they expected to achieve, or that you expected them to achieve. And dealing with a franchisee that is not achieving their goals, particularly financially, can be quite a stressful situation. So you just need to be kind of equipped for some of the emotional issues that might crop up, given that most people, when they buy a franchise, will be making a substantial investment. Could be the second biggest investment they make. They may actually put things like their houses on the line and what have you. So, it does add a little bit of there are some issues around dealing with a franchisee that's not quite getting there.
So yeah, that's the other side to it, but there's some clear points there as to how to manage those risks and how to overcome them, and being aware of them, I expect is half of the challenge. So what would you say are the most common mistakes a new franchisor makes, and how would you work with them to overcome those problems or remove them at all from happening?
Yeah, well, at Franchise Intelligence, when I sit down with a client and we start talking about, well, okay, now we've got to get out there and start building a network. We've done all the infrastructure build. We put all the legals in place. We've created a framework to allow you to manage franchisees through audit and review and mentoring programs. We've got a training program in place. We've got all that infrastructure's built. Now we're into, okay, now you've got to start getting out there and sell franchises. But then I just used the wrong word, because in actual fact, you don't sell franchises. You grant the right to individuals to operate the service that you've been successfully operating. And it's, there's a very important distinction there. And I think the most common mistake that new franchisors make is being too quick to grant the right to people who perhaps aren't really the right sort of people to run the franchise. You have to be very thorough about this. There's some very useful scientific tools that help you get under the skin of candidates and really help you understand whether they've got the right, the personality, the attitude, all of the character traits that you would be looking for. It's not just about have they got the means to be able to buy the franchise and fund the franchise. There'll be a lot of people who might rock up in your office or when you go to meet them say, yeah, I can afford to do this. And they might be really, really excited about being a franchisee of yours. And that might be quite persuasive in its own right. But yet, the most important lesson you will ever learn is being too cavalier in the way you appoint franchisees. Partly for the reason I mentioned a little bit earlier, which was that you go into a term arrangement with these people. 5 years, and you know, that's a fair period of time. So you really, you won't always get it right. You know, it doesn't matter how thorough you are. Sometimes, you know, you're making a mistake, or you'll think, well, maybe that actually wasn't the right person. And of course, the other side of the equation is that, you know, people will, you know, be great at the beginning, but all sorts of things can maybe trip them up along the way. You know, maybe personal issues or whatever. So, but the most, it is very, very important. You're very selective about who you want to represent your brand using your intellectual property, because, as I said, it's all about all the hard work you put in. You don't want that. You don't want that damaged. You want it enhanced.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, so having the right partners, the right franchisees, is going to be fundamental to your long-term success as a franchisor. So, obviously, people need to start the journey of going from a standalone local successful business to become a franchise. It can't be done overnight. There's a process to be gone through. So how long does it take to get a business ready to be franchised, and how do you work with your clients to do that?
Yes. There's no set timetable for this. It sounds like a little bit of a cop-out to say, well, how long is a piece of string? But you know, if we were able to, we had a client who was, you know, very, very focused on trying to get their business franchised within say a 3-month period. If we cleared the decks and didn't, you know, just totally focused on it, and they were able to give the commitment to the program as well, we might be able to achieve that. That will be going some. But there's quite a lot of work that usually needs to be done. It does kind of depend on exactly where the business is at that point in time. You know, how well structured is it already? You know, how well evolved are its processes and its business methodologies? So if it was all well structured, yeah, we could, you know, 3-4 months max, maybe we could be in a position where we're actively marketing a franchise opportunity. But typically, you know, I've had clients where it's taken us, you know, a year to 18 months to actually, you know, because one of the things that does crop up when and bear in mind that most businesses that are looking to scale are by definition relatively small businesses. Quite often the owner is still actively involved in running that business, and therefore time becomes the premium. The amount of time that they can devote to the project. You know, I've had some clients. We worked with a quick service restaurant last year, where the owners were very, very clear in saying to me, look, we are just up to our necks and beyond in running the day-to-day. But we're prepared for franchise intelligence to come in and basically just take over building all of the content for our program. And interestingly, they actually hadn't documented very much at all. So we had a lot of work to do. I mean, I understand quite a lot now, which I didn't before, about quick service restaurants, but that was great. But obviously, it took time, and it took us, you know, longer than it took us best part of last year to put that whole program together. We launched the franchise, started marketing it in January. In November last year. Their first franchise unit opened in Birmingham in February, and they've already got 3 more open. But you know, we did the hard yards. We spent a year putting it all in place, and it's working out extremely well for them.
Okay, excellent. So, how can we at Franchise Intelligence assist busy entrepreneurs in getting the job done, so they can get moved forward more effectively and efficiency into franchising their business?
Yeah, the franchise intelligence approach is to go through a kind of a methodical process, which takes us. The first step is into evaluation. So it is the case that most businesses, you know, can be franchised. So really, from a feasibility point of view, there are 5 things that are pretty important, 5 boxes that I need to tick to answer the question that an owner might put to me, i.e., can I franchise my business? The first one is we've spoken about it a lot, but how well proven is the business? Has it got an established working methodology? Has it got a market position, etc., etc.? The second one, again, we've touched on it. Can this business be replicated? Could you train somebody within a reasonable period of time to operate this business? Third one is the business in which, is the market in which the business operates, is it a sustainable one? Is there a clear pattern of demand, and is it likely that that pattern of demand will continue uninterrupted for a good period of time? What you don't want to do is go into or start franchising a business where there's some sort of quite significant technological change going to disrupt the market that you know about in the near future. Or a business that, say, maybe actually is really a fashion trend, and clearly it may well die out within a year or so. The fourth point is all about protection. Is the business properly protected? I'm talking about intellectual property. I'm talking about trademarks. I'm talking about software licenses. I'm talking about supplier arrangements. All these things you have to own. If you don't own all of that material, all of that content, you can't really sell it to other people to use. And the fifth one is perhaps the most obvious, but how profitable is this business, and how likely is it that people could earn a living out of running this business elsewhere? So if we do that feasibility check, we go through a process which identifies all of those issues, and then we start to go into an infrastructure build mode where we then look at the key components. We look at what are the respective obligations going to be within the franchise relationship. What's the franchisor going to do? What's the franchisee going to do? Make sure we're clear about that. We need to look at things like territories. What area are the franchisees going to operate in? How big do they? How big should they be? Don't want them too big. You don't want them too small. We have to be, again. That's a kind of a very critical issue to address. We need to consider the fee structure. How much are you going to sell your franchise for? What's the initial franchise fee going to be? Also, what's the total investment going to be? We've got to be very explicit about that. Understand all of those points. What's the ongoing management service fee going to be? How much are you going to charge for this support that you're going to provide to your franchisees? Do you want to charge some additional fees around advertising levies? Are you going to put a markup on product? Again, understanding the revenue flow back to the franchisor, so we can create a business plan, not just for a prospective franchisee, and we always do a 3-year profit and loss and cash flow forecast for a franchisee, but we also importantly look at it from the franchisor's point of view. What's the landscape going to look like for the franchisor if over the next 3 to 5 years they were able to build a franchise network of X number of franchisees, and what would be the revenue, what would be the costs to support that, and therefore what sort of net profitability would the business be looking at. And then we look at other issues like training. We define the support that's going to be needed for the franchise network, and again, what would that mean for the franchisor in terms of resourcing. And then we start to examine the recruitment process. How are we going to recruit franchisees? We need to build a profile of the ideal candidate. We need to think about what our messaging is going to be. We need to think about media channels, etc., etc. And we need to think about how we're going to process inquiries when they come to us as efficiently as possible. As I said earlier, there are 900 franchise systems out there. A lot of competition. You'll be one of them. And franchise intelligence, one of our areas of expertise, is helping franchisors to really sharpen up their recruitment and actually stand out and actually get some real cut through, so that they can build networks of successful franchisees. That's what we're really looking to do. And for us at Franchise Intelligence, the other area that we tend to excel in, and I think that comes about because we're practitioners. We're people who've been involved in running franchise businesses for a long time. We help our clients, particularly those new into franchising, we mentor them through the whole process of how they manage their franchisees, dealing with some of the little knotty issues that will crop up from time to time.
Excellent. A very good overview there of the process that that Franchise Intelligence takes our clients through in order to enter effectively into being franchisors, into guiding other people into effective self-employment through the franchise model. So some people now will probably be thinking, well, that sounds great. I've seen the pros, I've seen the cons, I understand the process. So what's all this going to cost? What is the cost of franchising a business?
Well, that's always the great question, isn't it? How much is it going to cost me? Franchising it's a low cost way of expanding, but it's not a no cost way of expanding. If any business expansion is going to need funding, it's going to need investment. Franchising is absolutely no different. The answer to the question is, quite often when I have this discussion with clients, I can't be absolutely precise at the beginning because until I've actually done that feasibility piece. And then through that feasibility exercise, one of the things that comes out of it is an action plan where we define who exactly is going to do what. If I looked at the quick service restaurant that I was talking about previously, then because we were very actively involved in building everything, every item that was needed for that franchise we put together, then the total investment, exceeded £20,000, in not just for us, but with these charges as well for developing the agreement and what have you. So, but it can be, it could be a quarter of that. It really depends on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And we've got some clients who we simply just guide through the process. We act as just as I said, really an advisor and a mentor in the process. The one thing I would say is that with a franchise, because you are commanding a franchise fee when you sell your franchises, depending on what level of fee you're charging, it's pretty usual that the first couple of franchise sales will pretty much pay down most, if not all, of the initial investment. So you're not looking at, it's not a long-term payback for a franchise if it's all been done correctly. If you don't put the right effort in to getting everything right, and in a way that's what we do. I could say there's no mystique and there's no rocket science in all of this, but it's making sure that what is done correctly. And if we do that, and we've got an attractive looking franchise opportunity, then you will sell franchises at a pretty decent pace. I never suggest anyone should be overly ambitious in setting their targets for the number of franchises they're going to sell. But if we're realistic about it, then your payback will be pretty quick.
Excellent. So really what you're saying is that it's not really a cost to franchise your business, it's more of a cash flow management activity or perhaps an investment process rather than a cost. And I think that when it comes to building a business and developing it, looking at it as an investment would be the way to see that. So would you agree? Would you say that franchising is a cost or an investment for a business owner?
It is absolutely an investment. Don't look at it, but look upon it as a cost. This is all about creating a vehicle that's going to allow you to monetize all of that knowledge, experience, all your intellectual property in a very, very effective way. And of course, the other upside in this is that, again, with a network of franchisees or all very empowered, your rate of growth will be quicker and will be more impressive than you might have achieved through trying to build your own your own sort of your own network through conventional routes.
So we mentioned earlier on the expectations of business owners and how they can grow through the investment and efforts of others, called franchisees in this case. So when someone becomes a franchisor and they offer that franchise and they're looking to attract the right caliber of people into their franchise, what sort of expectations will people that are considering becoming a franchisee carry with them into the initial interview, into the launch, and into the trading process that the franchisor needs to be aware of?
Well, it's important to understand that franchisees are not really entrepreneurs. They might think they are, but they're not, because if they were entrepreneurs, they'd just go off and do something entirely on their own. So franchisees are people who are looking for the reassurance that they harbour the ambition to become a business owner. They want to work for themselves. And in fact, I would suggest that probably the majority of people sitting out there at the moment in behind desks, behind counters, driving vehicles, whatever, are thinking to themselves, you know what, I'd really like to be able to just be my own boss. So it's an ambition that a lot of people harbour, but they just don't have the gumption to go and do it. Maybe the circumstances at the time aren't right, but they want to go and do it. So when they decide, so franchising is an ideal route for those people, because it is, about buying a proven business, and their expectation will be that they will get a business in a box, that you will deliver to them all of the you will train them, and you will deliver to them all the wherewithal and the know-how to replicate what you've done. Exactly. So they want an arm around their shoulder. They like the idea that there's always somebody there they can turn to and ask a question, or get advice, get some support. And that again, I think, is one of the great benefits of franchising, is that you bring two parties together who all have a common goal. So the expectation for the franchisee will be that you again are going to give them a decent training program. You're going to advise them exactly how they should organize their business, what they need to do before they come in for their training in terms of company setup, funding, etc. You will help them on the process of evaluating that franchise opportunity. And once they're in business, what they would expect is that you're going to not do everything for them, because that's not how it works. They have to accept that it's all down to them, day in, day out. They're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones that are responsible for delivering that service, or opening the store and selling goods to customers. But they want to know that you're accessible. If they've got any issues, any problems, any concerns, that you or your team are going to be available, and just provide them with the advice and guidance that they need. A good franchise is built on a platform of a sort of a collegiate culture, a sharing culture, and if you can create that, one of the things that does tend to happen in a well-run franchise is that the franchisees themselves become a self-help group, and it should be the franchisor's role to try and facilitate that. There's lots and lots of technology that's available now that helps you, create, share good practice ideas, thoughts, and views in the right way. So again, a good franchisor will put those sorts of facilities in place, and recognise that there is a power. There's a power of good for having all of the franchisees talk to each other, and learn from each other. That's what makes it powerful. That's what really makes it powerful.
Okay, great. Well, I think we have covered a lot of ground there during this time. Just to round it off, Clive, what would you say for anyone watching now that's thinking about franchising their business? what is the best next step for them to make? And we'll close it off with this. So what's the best next step for someone to make who's thinking about franchising their business right now?
Okay, well, the franchise intelligence way is to have an exploratory chat on the phone. At least we can just start to talk to you and give you an initial view as to what the art of the possible is with your business. And from that, what we will then do is carry out a little feasibility study and give you a report as to what we think is the best approach to franchising your business. What are the implications for doing so? How we see the model working, and that then becomes a document that allows you to make an informed decision about whether it's the best thing to do, or when you should do it, and how you should do it.
Okay, great. Well, some very clear advice there, really helpful stuff. Thank you for that, Clive. So thank you again, and thank you for watching. If indeed you have been informed and inspired and would like to know more about the steps to take to franchise your business, do contact us at Franchise Intelligence. We'll be happy to speak to you without obligation, and excited about walking with you and guiding you into your new business development future. All right, thank you for watching, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks for now.